Some lives are stories told in this single, powerful loop. Imagine this, a woman born in a prison cell who draws her very last breath on a concert stage. Well, that was the incredible life of Miriam Makeba, the voice that literally forced the world to listen to the sounds of struggle. Her story is one of defiance, of heartbreak, and of an unwavering, absolute truth.
And this right here, this was her lifelong motto. It's the key that unlocks her entire story. See, for Miriam Makeba, the truth of her people, the joy, the pain, the sheer injustice of apartheid South Africa, that wasn't politics. It was just life. And she was going to sing about it, no matter what it cost her.
So, her story ends right where it was always lived, on a stage, fighting for a cause. At 76 years old, she was in Italy, supporting a writer who was being threatened by the mafia. She sang her heart out, took her final bow, walked off that stage, and collapsed from a fatal heart attack. To really understand how she got to that final, defiant performance, we have to go all the way back to the very beginning.
See, her voice wasn't just some gift she was born with. No, it was more like a weapon, one that was forged in the absolute fires of apartheid, that brutal system of racial segregation in South Africa.
Her life literally started with an injustice. Born in Johannesburg, she spent the first 6 months of her life in a prison cell. Why? Because her mother was arrested for brewing traditional beer just to make ends meet. But even from that beginning, a star began to rise. By the 1950s, her incredible voice made her a sensation with groups like the Manhattan Brothers. Then she starred in King Kong, this landmark jazz opera that cleverly got around segregation laws by playing to integrated audiences at universities. Her fame was just exploding, but it was one small role that was about to change everything. In 1959, she appeared in this secretly filmed anti-apartheid documentary called Come Back Africa. She was on screen for just 4 minutes, singing 2 songs. That's it. But that was all it took. When it screened at the Venice Film Festival, her performance was a complete revelation, and it caught the eye of the legendary American singer and activist Harry Belafonte, who saw in her a powerful new voice for justice.
So yeah, that 4-minute cameo, it was her ticket out of South Africa and onto the world stage. But it came with a price she could never, ever have imagined.
So she gets to America, and boom, she's an instant sensation. But as her star was rising in the West, the door to her own home was slamming shut, kicking off a new, incredibly painful chapter of her life, one defined by both global fame and profound loss.
This is the moment everything just fractured. Right as her career is taking off in New York, she gets the devastating news. Her mother has passed away. She rushes to the South African consulate to arrange travel. But the official just takes her passport, slams a stamp into it without a single word, and hands it back. And that stamp, it read, invalid. Just like that, she was officially an exile. And this kicked off this just shocking duality to her life in the 1960s. On one side of the coin, you have this global superstar. She's being mentored by Harry Belafonte, she's singing for President John F. Kennedy's birthday, and in 1965, she wins a Grammy. But on the other side, a stateless exile, banned from her own mother's funeral, with her music completely forbidden back home.
But instead of being silenced, you know what? Her exile just poured fuel on her activism. In 1963, she stood before the United Nations and gave this powerful testimony against apartheid. She dove headfirst into the American civil rights movement, connecting the struggles. And through all of this, her personal resilience was just incredible, surviving a battle with cervical cancer and proudly embracing her identity, popularizing the natural Afro look way before it became mainstream.
Makeba's commitment to Black liberation was total. It was absolute. But it was about to put her on a direct collision course with the American establishment, leading to a second, devastating exile. So what was the moment that changed everything? Well, it was 1968. She married Stokely Carmichael, the charismatic and, let's be honest, controversial leader of the Black Panther Party. And for a lot of people in the American music industry, and definitely the government, this union was just unforgivable.
And the backlash? Oh, it was fast and it was brutal. Suddenly, her record deals, gone. Her sold-out U.S. tours, all canceled. The media branded her an extremist, and the FBI started watching her every move. The final punch came when her U.S. visa was revoked while she was traveling abroad. Once again, she was locked out of a country she had called home.
So, cast out of America, she found refuge in Guinea in West Africa. President Sékou Touré welcomed her with open arms. And here, her role really started to shift. She wasn't just a singer anymore. She became a diplomat, representing Guinea at the United Nations and continuing to use her powerful voice on the world stage to fight against apartheid.
But it was during this period that she would face the most gut-wrenching loss of her life. In 1985, her only child, Bongji, a talented singer in her own right who had followed her mother into exile, died tragically after complications from childbirth.
She later described herself as just completely broken by the loss. And yet, in this unbelievable show of resilience, she was back on stage performing just 4 days after her daughter's funeral. For her, singing was never just a job. It was literally how she survived. It was the only way she knew how to process that unimaginable pain.
Okay, so after decades of exile, decades of this unbelievable personal tragedy, the final act of Miriam Makeba's life would be this triumphant, long-awaited return. Just let that number sink in for a second. 31. For 31 years, Miriam Makeba was unable to set foot in the country of her birth.
The tide really started to turn in 1987 when Paul Simon invited her to join his groundbreaking Graceland tour. It reintroduced Mama Africa to a whole new generation. And then things started happening fast. Her records were finally unbanned at home, Nelson Mandela was freed from prison, and in June 1990, at Mandela's personal request, Miriam Makeba finally came home.
And she didn't come home to retire. Oh, no. She immediately just poured all of her energy right back into her country. She starred in the powerful film Serafina. She founded a center to protect and rehabilitate young girls. She became a fierce advocate in the fight against HIV/AIDS, and she continued her work as a UN Goodwill Ambassador.
And this brings us right back to where we started, in Italy, in 2008. Her journey, which started in that prison cell, ended on a stage, after a whole lifetime spent using her voice, not for fame, but for freedom. Her life wasn't just a loop, it was a promise that she kept.
And you know, perhaps no one summed up her legacy better than Nelson Mandela himself. She was so much more than a singer. She was Mama Africa, the mother of a struggle, whose truth, sung with so much beauty and defiance, really did help change the world.